Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. I am behind the show curtain co-editor Dave Schofield, the Little Bro Scho, here with always my Big Bro Scho, Rich. Rich, real quick, how are you? Because I want to share the breaking news with you.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
I'm good.
I didn't want the live chat to spoil it. This just
I'm not
came
looking
across
anyway.
the wire. This came to me first from Michael Beck a while ago. I know he's working on an article. It's not directly Steelers related. It's just very intriguing that the New York Jets have released Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, straight up released, huh?
Straight up. You didn't know. And I said, let's go. I said, let's go live. I want to tell you live.
been reading all the stories about how they were trying to get a trade, but they weren't going to get a trade.
No.
Not with that contract.
Not only that, I think he clears waivers.
Yeah, he probably will.
Because if you make the waiver claim for him, you got to pay his contract.
Correct.
So, yeah, for those of you that are just joining us now, some of you have seen it. You're already in there like, yeah. Some of you already knew it. They did just put it up also on the Tuesday night game because, yes, we are live on YouTube. It is Tuesday night, and the game is on. I actually have it on my phone in the background, which is about a minute behind people on TV. So if I'm saying something, it might be well after it's happening for you all. But it's in the second half, the game between the Bills and the Titans. But they brought it up. Jim Brown came in with a report to say that yes, Le'Veon Bell has been released. I know a lot of Steelers fans are going to say, do they want to kick the tires? Once again, we always like to say with what money, but as we know, the salary cap is always something you can work around one way or the other. But I don't know that that's something that the Steelers want to bother with at this point, just because of the way things are going for them. You know, do you really want to add something there? If something were to happen there, I would say it would have to be more of his people approaching the Steelers rather than the Steelers going there. That's just my opinion. But what do you think, Rich?
My opinion is, if Le'Veon Bell wanted to be in Pittsburgh, he could have been in Pittsburgh.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not.
He basically, dished out the double bird to the Steelers organization on the way out the door. I don't know why you would bring him back.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm saying my answer is no, but I'm not saying it's impossible for those of you that would really like to see it. I'm not saying that it won't be done. I'm just saying I would not bet on it. I think we need to bring this up because when someone drops $20,
I was gonna say, when somebody drops a Jackson on the thing, you better bring it up.
Yeah,
bring it up.
We go, Joey Jr., which is funny because my daughter ate one of those for dinner tonight. I'm sorry, it's from Mo's Southwest Grill. Once you leave Pittsburgh, your career is over. Facts are facts. Steelers Nation, it feels good to be 4-0. It's very rare where someone still has a steady career after they leave Pittsburgh. It really is. I know Emmanuel Sanders is still doing it. He probably thrived a little bit more, but look at the quarterbacks he made sure he went and played for, which is absolutely insane. That he could play for those guys. Steve McClendon still doing all right for the Jets? He's a guy you don't think of. Right now, coaching for Tennessee, Mike Vrabel. He needed to go out of Pittsburgh just to have a chance to play. So that's just one of those things. But
you've seen other guys who have been on the team that are still playing well. Chris Hubbard's still playing well for the team I won't mention now because we'll talk about them later. We're going to be talking
about them, which is interesting because I'm going to bring him up whenever we get into the second part of the show when we actually talk about Cleveland. But I'm really sorry that we kind of jumped in on this real quick, but it's what's going on in the world, and everyone wanted to say that. There's right now people were commenting about how Tennessee scored another touchdown and they're taking it to the Buffalo Bills. It's very interesting. I saw one comment on Twitter that said Tennessee coming out this sharp might make teams rethink their practice strategies in the future, since they basically haven't practiced. But I don't know if that's really the way to go. But Rich,
Dave,
how you been? It's been a long time. Which is funny, inside joke. It actually hasn't, because for the first time since, wow, your grad school days in college and my undergrad, we actually watched a Steelers game together that wasn't actually at the stadium.
Correct.
I made the trek to spend the weekend with some family, which included you, as well as, getting to visit my parents and my in-laws. From a distance, sorry. Had to throw that in there for that one. But was able to watch the game with you this weekend. So we kind of have a little bit of idea of how we feel about stuff a little bit more, as we were making comments throughout the game, as you were doing an excellent job doing the knee-jerk reactions article. And Kyle, of course, was throwing in his 2 cents every once in a while. And it was just a good time. So 4-0, there's the news of Le'Veon Bell being released. Big whoop. 4-0, right?
4-0 for the first time since 1979. I bet you remember that.
Oh, yes, I remember that, and my whole 18 months of existence when that happened. Hey, and the Steelers, you know what? They've only ever gone to 5-0 one other time, and that was 78.
Mm-hmm.
They actually, I think, reached 7-0. So the Steelers have a chance to really get up there this week. But let's talk about the game that happened. Let's talk about kind of what's going on with stuff with the Steelers in the NFL. And the title of the show is actually going to be twofold, because we're going to talk about it with this past week, and we're kind of going to reflect a little bit over the first quarter of the season, since it's a good spot to do it. And then we'll take that same topic and roll into things with the Browns. And that is the Steelers' ever-evolving defense. And it's funny, because I said it's ever-evolving, but I don't – it's only because you're playing a different team each week. I think it's been the same philosophy for the most part. And that is a philosophy that many have attributed to that team up north in years past, where you basically take one aspect of a team's game, whether an aspect or a player, and you want to minimize them as much as possible. I feel that's what the Steelers did in week 1 with Saquon Barkley. Would you agree to that?
Yes. How can you not?
Yeah. Week 2, that was a lot harder to tell, because when the Broncos quarterback went down early in the game, you don't really, everything was kind of different, So that one was interesting. Week 3, I think they had a philosophy that they were looking at Deshaun Watson, and I don't think it was working. And I think they made adjustments at halftime, and then it worked. And then this past week, I don't know if everyone noticed this, because everyone was so much up in arms about the pass defense giving up so many yards, and how one player that had only had 2 career catches came in and put up 10 on the Steelers. It was 10, right? Yeah, 10. But if you look at what the Steelers are trying to do, who were they trying to take out?
The elimination piece was they were trying to eliminate Zach Ertz.
They were trying to eliminate Zach Ertz. And that was something that Jeffrey Benedict and I did an article together today. It was super nerdy. We called it the Steelers Vertex, because this was actually Jeffrey's nerdy idea, not even me, because it was the whole notion of, a vertex is where a single point where 2 or more lines cross. So I took the statistical line of thinking, and he took the film breakdown line of thinking, and we crossed them into a single point. And the point that we made was what the Steelers were doing against Zach Ertz and the consequences of that. I still feel that I can't even get his name right. You know what I'm saying? That it's Fulgham, right?
Correct.
Travis, I'm saying that right. Travis
Fulgham, walk-on wide receiver at Old Dominion University.
He comes out, and he had his exact stats were, let me double check here. It was 10 receptions, 152 yards, and a touchdown. Jeffrey even had more thoughts on this. He says this game with the Steelers defense kind of came in 3 parts. He says there was the first part where it was, all about Zach Ertz and Fulgham was getting his receptions. Then there was a second part where the Steelers were still trying to do what they were against Ertz, but were trying to pay attention to Fulgham, but weren't doing it very well. And then at the end, they've kind of just had to say, you know what, we've got to make sure we have him covered here at the end. And kind of didn't go back to Ertz. But to me, I think that's what their philosophy was. But I also think Philadelphia did a really good job of saying, you know what, you're going to take him away. We're going to use this to our advantage, and we're going to use your overplay or your overfocus of making sure you're getting the right matchup on that tight end that we think that we can then get another receiver.
We can get the matchup we want somewhere else.
Yes, and that's
based on you trying to get your most favorable matchup here, we'll use that as a chess piece to move our guys to get a matchup we want somewhere else, and we're going to utilize that one. Also, I know that he's not having what you would call a great year, but you got to remember at one point in time, Carson Wentz was in MVP talk.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
Yes.
He was talked the year they made the Super Bowl run with Foles. Wentz was in the MVP of the league discussion.
And it was, how much of the narrative was the Eagles are done. They can't do anything without Wentz. And I know I was listening. That was when I still had a local ESPN radio station around here, which I don't anymore. Someone from Philadelphia says, you don't think that this coaching staff can make the adjustments for Foles to then make a playoff run? And they were saying, nope, no chance. Boom. And that's what they did, which tells me, especially offensively, I think the Eagles are a very well-coached team on the offensive side of the ball. And therefore, it did not surprise me that they were able to take advantage of some of the stuff the Steelers were doing. So the Steelers' philosophy is still going to be get pressure, send extra guys to get pressure when we can, try to disguise where the pressure's coming from, not bring it from the same place all the time. Although, frankly, I'm okay if they bring it from Mike Hilton most of the time. And when they don't, it's coming from Bush or Vince Williams. Because when they tried to get fancy and blitz Cam Sutton, when they were in dime up against 11 personnel on a 3rd and 9, Mike Hilton doesn't make the tackle, and there's a 74-yard rushing touchdown.
Yeah, it just makes my eye twitch.
Yeah. Oh. So that was just that was another film room that Jeffrey Benedict did today. We were going to cover that.
Yeah, that was great film.
Well, that was kind of me talking to him. I was going to do that and the Zach Ertz thing for our article. And then I'm like, I think this is going to be too much. I think we should just stick to one. He said, let's do the Ertz thing so I can do that other play as its own film room. I said, go for it. And he did. Yeah. And they ran back to back on the website. It was
perfect film room. And as that play happened, I told you, hey, watch Mike Hilton. By the way, how did I explain it to you on Sunday? You remember? It was Mike Hilton. It was Mike Hilton. There was the same issue that Mike Hilton had when he gave up the touchdown pass the week before.
Mm-hmm.
That was Mike Hilton came up to make the tackle, and he came up, planted his feet in the ground in cement.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that,
you're
beat. And it was the same thing on his run. He came up in support great, and all of a sudden his feet just looked like they hit a couple glue traps on the field and couldn't move.
Yeah. And I have an article coming out tomorrow. I do every Wednesday about Mike Tomlin, the questions he's asked about Steelers players in his press conference and how he answers them. And the one was great. It was a question about Mike Hilton and the whole notion of will offenses start to scheme to get him locked up into pass coverage. Do you see that happening? And Tomlin's answer was, nope, no, I don't. And that was it. That was his answer. Because bottom line is, if you decide you're going to send Hilton, then that's what you're going to do. Yeah. But that you got to play a player to his strengths. And and usually him being there in support on a run would be the player you would want. But what's crazy about
that?
But
it was another one of those, like in the week before, where he didn't freeze, but his feet did. It's like all of a sudden his feet got frozen to the ground. Mm-hmm. And as soon as his feet stopped moving, you're susceptible to the wide receiver making the double move on him like he did, or the running back popping it a little further outside and getting around him. And that's what happened. Yeah.
I'm going to liken it to I'm going to put it to slow pitch softball. Sorry about that. I've referenced that several times. But as a first baseman, when a big left-hander comes up and hits a scorcher on the ground at you, and you freeze and you reach rather than take the one-step shuffle over to take it, to field it as a regular ground ball, you need to. Instead, you need to, but your brain just shuts it down and your feet don't move and you reach and you miss the ball.
And as soon as you miss it, you say, shoot, I didn't move my feet.
I didn't step. All I needed was one step. Yeah.
And that's almost what it seems. That's a decent analogy. I'm going to give you credit for your decent slow pitch softball analogy. Yes. You could have used it baseball or
I could have said baseball. Well, I didn't.
Well, but it's the same thing. The whole thing, that ball being hit, and that you're supposed to move, and you just try to reach out and do it. And that's kind of what Hilton looked like going for that tackle. His feet quit moving, and he tried to just lunge out and get him and couldn't do it.
Yes. And that would have been the third straight 3 and out. Everything changes from that point. Everything changes from that point. I'm a firm believer in that so many times, so many people say, well, if this would have happened, it would have, and they assume that everything else, this is just in life in general, that everything else in life would play out the same way if this major thing didn't happen. It's kind of like a butterfly effect. I am not one of those people that said if the refs would not have taken away his 4th touchdown, Chase Claypool would have had 5 touchdowns. My answer is no, he would not have. Because the game wouldn't have played out in a way that the Steelers would have been in that situation where he got the last one. Most likely. I feel his final touchdown was justice for them taking away his 4th one with that horrible offensive pass interference call. We can just agree that the officiating I thought it was pretty bad.
It was bad all around. It was bad all around.
In week 2. That one was pretty bad. It really was.
Yeah, but all right. So in Jeffrey and breaking down just that run today, and the obvious holds that happened on that play.
Yeah, and then I was at your house. Wasn't I screaming? That's a hold. That's a hold.
And then was it him in that one, or was it someone else talking about the one where TJ Watt went to do the spin move and the guy just bear hugs him? It's like, how is that not a hold? Not only that, but how do you not see that guy bear hug him when the guy's wearing one of those pink armbands for because of the kiss? It's like right around the front. How do you not see that? It's like I don't know. The whole talk in terms of the refereeing this year is saying, call the stuff that's obvious, okay?
But then they're calling things that are terrible.
I think the group on Sunday was doing the exact opposite, because the Chase Claypool, that was not obvious. And actually, when you slowed down, you looked, you saw it didn't happen, period. They called what they thought they saw, not what they saw.
The receiver, he was doing a swim move. Whoa, as I punched the microphone, sorry for those of you listening there, if that came through. Because I was showing the swim move that he was doing, which is very common for receivers to get around a corner. It didn't have to be a corner, around a defender. Because it's also something guys on the defensive line do to get around the offensive line. He was just doing a swim move, and the guy was just happening to be going to the ground, not because Claypool put him there. That was bad. The Joe Hayden pass interference penalty, which we talked about, there was one official right there in front of it, didn't call it, and a guy from way up the field,
20 yards back up the field, throws a flag way down there because he saw it better.
I'm sorry, but anytime you do that, that should when you're throwing a penalty flag into basically another official's area, that should instantly be a discussion between the official that threw it and the official that was standing there.
Yep.
And you should be willing to pick up that flag and say, "Oh, I saw where he." I'm like, "No, I had a better view, and he actually didn't contact him." You know, but they don't do that. He just runs over to the head official and says, "Pass interference."
Yep.
You know, sometimes they do, but they should do it every time.
I know. So I don't like to get on the referees a lot. I don't like to use them, and ever try to use them as an excuse.
You've got to overcome.
But there was some really poor officiating. You know what some of the games, and I've watched more than just Steeler games and just noticed some bad officiating all around. Mm-hmm. You know what it reminds me of?
Wow.
Remember several years back when we had the referees strike or whatever?
Yeah.
We had the replacement referees.
Oh, and the
replacement referees. The first couple of games back for the regular refs, they were terrible, and I was hollering to bring back the replacements.
Well, remember the replacements that what was that? Was it Seattle and Green Bay? Russell Wilson, was he like a rookie or second year? He was young, not super established, and they made that, and it was an interception. And then the offensive guy reaches in at the last second to hold on to the ball too, and they call it a touchdown, and the game was over. That was insane. And there's a touchdown for the Bills, in case anyone's paying attention to that.
No, I'm not paying attention to that. So
so there's still 10 minutes left in that game, if for those of you watching live on YouTube on Thursday night. So we talk about, and you even mentioned in your article with the officials. I'm going to bring it up, because I can't say that I disagree with this. Okay.
Oh, where'd it go? It moved. Hold on.
Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to bring up another really bad call.
I got it.
When they called Kevin Dotson illegally downfield.
Oh, yes.
Because he wasn't. He was within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. He was basically at the line of scrimmage, but all the other guys dropped into pass protection, and he came off the line and went parallel to the line looking for a guy. So just because he wasn't with the rest of the group, they called it, but he wasn't downfield. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So DJ 2I, that's what we usually go with.
DJ 2IT only.
Yeah. I think to be fair to refs, the NFL changes rules. Oh, that's not the one I was looking for. I thought
you'll find it.
No, it skipped again when I went to. I was on it, and you were like, "Oh, wait, I want to bring this up." And when I clicked,
there we go.
All right, Ryan O'Toole. No reason why the NFL shouldn't have an official in the sky. That's one thing the XFL got right, and I thought when the XFL was doing that, I was in total agreement that there is no reason the NFL couldn't put something like that in to help clear some of this up.
Yeah, I suggested this in the past, and I know it would need it ironed out. It's not perfect, but I'm like, I would love to have 3 independent officials, whether they're at the stadium or watching in New York, watching the game. And if there was a blatantly missed penalty or a blatantly incorrect called penalty, that they would hit a red button. If they look at a play and nothing jumps out, they hit a green button. If all 3 of them independently hit a red button, they stop the game to review it. And they actually review penalties based on, and then there's a discussion between the 3 people that buzzed in and that person. That was a crazy idea I had a while ago. I don't know that that's an answer, but it would be better,
that's an answer,
and it's funny because I even made the comment of, now that they're not reviewing pass interference anymore, which, part of me likes it, that there aren't, because they wouldn't overturn it anyway. It was a lot of times you were losing a timeout and wasting a challenge. Yep. But some of those, and you were there when they overturned one in that Seattle game that basically changed the game, and it wasn't called. It shouldn't have been called, and yet they overturned it on nothing. And that basically set up, like, the next 8 weeks, they wouldn't change any call on the field in any game, regardless of how bad it was.
Right. But because they messed that one up so bad.
They messed that up so bad. So, but now it almost seems like how much theatrics are we dealing with? You're getting defenders flopping like in hockey to get an OPI. You're getting receivers actually hooking defenders' arms to try to go up and be like, oh, he's holding me. They're where you can see that that's what they're trying to do. So it's turned into, who can cheat the best? Who can
we all know the answer to that.
Yeah, we know the answer to that question. We know who the biggest cheater is. So
who's the biggest cheater?
Yeah.
After you.
Yeah. So it is what it is. So let's get back to this defensive scheme a little bit, because we kind of got off the officials. But I feel that that's the Steelers' philosophy, and that is that they're going to go in that they are the reason it's evolving is because it's a different game plan every week based on the team you're playing, which is exactly what you got to do. It's what Minkah Fitzpatrick talked about this offseason when he was doing I think that one was, I don't know if that was the one of his interviews or when he was doing the film breakdown. I can't remember exactly which time when he said it. He's like, in Alabama, we ran a different defense every week. That's what we did. Right. Well, this one, I don't know that it's a pure different defense every week, but like Jeffrey Benedict sent us a play to the BTSC staff showing how the one play where the Steelers lined up in a 3-3-5 defense. And it was actually one that they threw him for a loss on a run. That was pretty good. So they just have a different goal every week. So I still think that this past week it was they weren't going to let Zach Ertz burn them. And I went back and looked. See, Zach Ertz had single-digit receiving yards against the 49ers, and then he had single-digit receiving yards against the Steelers. First time in his NFL career. First time that's ever happened, where that's happened back-to-back times. And it's the fewest receptions he's had in a super duper long time. We only had the one catch. So the thing is, does that work? Meaning, so now you're talking between him and Fulgham, they had 11 catches for 158 yards between the two players. So does it really matter who gets it? So I think against Houston, the Steelers did a good job of adjusting their philosophy at halftime, but I think it took them a little bit longer against Philadelphia. And Jeffrey says he thinks that they figured out by the end that they just, you couldn't let that guy burn them. So,
right, but again, you don't let that guy burn you. But I think back to my much younger days, when I had some athletic ability. And my role on my high school varsity basketball team was to basically, I was the defense.
You were the defense.
It was find the best player in the other team, and it was my job to shut them down. Yeah.
Minimize as much as possible.
Correct. And I won't even go into things, but there was a player that played against who was player of the year in the entire area for 2 years. He averaged 34 a game. I would hold him in the teens, typically 15 or less, and we always still lost to his team.
Yeah.
And it was always seemed to be because why? Well, suddenly guys that were averaging 4 points a game were getting 14 against us. So in the end, we couldn't win a game when I would hold that guy back if guys that normally couldn't produce were then allowed to produce.
Exactly. And that's kind of what happened here. Well, that's not kind of. That's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened here. We held Zach Ertz and did exactly what we wanted to, but when we let Fulgham go crazy, it's still a ball game.
Yeah.
If you hold Ertz and don't give up big, huge numbers to somebody else, in this case, Fulgham, we get the blowout win that everybody was wanting and that we had going for a while.
Yes. Yeah, I started to breathe easy, and then, of course, all the air got sucked out of the room. If you have not, if you're listening right now, if you have not checked out that article at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, it's called Steelers Vertex, and it's about, let's see, the exact title here was Steelers Vertex, the consequences of shutting down Zach Ertz was what it was. And Jeffrey did a good job of breaking it down and showing how even Ertz was setting some stuff up at the line of scrimmage as they were making a change, which therefore then got Fulgham open. So it's just, it was one of those things that need to be corrected. Now with that, what I'm going to tease going into the second half of the show is this. A lot of people were worried about the Steelers secondary because, look what Philadelphia just did against them and look at Fulgham and everything else. That was based on this past week's game plan. That doesn't mean they'll have the same problems this week because it could be a completely different emphasis. What that emphasis will be, that's the question. So that's what we're going to talk about rolling into part 2. So if you're listening to us in audio form, make sure you just go ahead and click on over to part 2. And for those of you that are here on YouTube, we'll be right back after this quick break. And we are back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with the second part of the Scho Bro Show. I am Dave Schofield, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. The little Bro Scho to the Big Bro Scho. Rich, still doing good?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not much changed in the last 30 seconds since we were on the other show.
Yep. I was going to say that you've got a beard now. I'm just kidding. We discussed the breaking news a little bit about Le'Veon Bell being released from the Jets. That's been a big discussion in the live chat. That's great. Have at it in there. That's wonderful. We were talking about the Steelers' defensive philosophy and what it seems like they've been doing the first 4 weeks. And what does that mean going forward this week? So what do you think the Steelers should focus on when it comes to the Cleveland Browns this week? What do you think that their defensive philosophy should be?
I would have had a different answer maybe a couple weeks ago than what my answer is now.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because Nick Chubb is injured.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, I like the way that guy runs. He'd look good in black and gold.
Yeah, he's a hard runner, but a lot of people look good in black and gold.
Yeah. What do you want me to say here? Because I'll go right into what I think you could potentially see if that's what you're asking.
Well, because this is kind of crazy when you look at the numbers. We're some numbers geeks, so we're going to look at it a little bit. And Cleveland is leading the league in rushing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, are they still going to be under that mindset because they had Chubb for most of that? And remember, part of the reason they are leading the league in rushing is because they rushed for 307 yards against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll do it. Here are their rushing totals on the season. I'm going to give them to you. 130. This is team rushing. 138 yards against the Ravens, 215 against the Bengals, 158 against the Washington football team, 307 against the Cowboys, 124 against the Colts. Now the Colts have a strong defensive front, but so does the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the Browns don't have Nick Chubb. So how do you think that's going to play out? Do you think that the Steelers need to then kind of change the focus for something else when you're talking about they had, you had 88 yards from Jarvis Landry against the Colts. You had 58 yards from Odell Beckham against the Colts. What I am a little bit concerned about was the 3 catches for 21 yards and a touchdown by Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
That happened against the Colts. So do you think the Steelers do the philosophy of we're going to take one thing and shut it down? Or do you think this is going to be a different philosophy this week?
It's going to be a different one this week.
Yeah. You don't think they're just going to go in and say, well, we're going to shut this down?
No.
Okay.
Because if you come in and you say you're going to just try to shut down, let's say you say, okay, we're going to shut down the run game.
Yeah.
Okay. The issue there is you've got OBJ, Landry, and Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3.
Hooper had 57 yards on 5 catches against
Right. 3. If you want to argue, you could maybe, but 3 Pro Bowl caliber receivers / tight ends. Okay, that's too much to lean away from. But at the same time, I don't see any one or even 2 of those that you say, well, we got to just take that totally away.
Yes.
This is going to have to be more of an overall defensive strategy, not a we can take away this strategy.
Yeah.
That we can try to win this by taking away a piece has worked partly because of the matchups we've had. Although, as you said, it was not working against the Texans. We made some halftime adjustments, and then suddenly
there it was.
And the Texans couldn't do anything. Is this the week where we finally see more man coverage than zone? Possibility.
That's a great possibility. That's something, I would, whether or not the Steelers do it, what I would prefer them to do doesn't mean anything, or what I think they'll do. It's all going to come down to what they determine. Here's something interesting, though.
But it wouldn't surprise me if they went into this matchup and said, here's the first matchup where we really need to go spend more time going man on man to cover what they have.
Yeah, I would like to see that. The thing that's interesting, though, I'd have to go back and look at it, but in the offseason, our guy, Jeffrey Benedict, did a film breakdown to show that how on that Thursday night in Cleveland last year, the Browns offense basically exposed the Steelers, a couple things with the Steelers defense. Now, the Steelers turned around and fixed it to beat them 2 weeks later, but they did actually do something. Now, this is a whole different coaching staff and everything else, so that makes it completely different. Here's something that I was very shocked to find out. Where do you think the Browns are? Not an exact number, but whereabouts in the league do you think they are when it comes to ranking with the pass? In
their NFL. Passing game, what their rank is, I'd say probably 12 to 15.
Well, here's what's really interesting with this, because it gets extremely difficult, because now you've got a bunch of teams that haven't played 5 games. This is the part of the season where it's tough, because you do it ranked on yards, but then not all the teams play the same. So you'd have to do yards per game. I don't have that right in front of me. But just looking at straight up yards, regardless of how many games, remember, they have played 5. They are 24th.
Really?
Not only that, they are 33 yards ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have only played 4 games. They have 991 passing yards to the Steelers' 958 passing yards. And that's in 5 games. That was something that was very surprising to me, that it really hasn't been that they're like, oh, well, Baker Mayfield. No, they haven't been throwing the ball all over the place. They really haven't. I mean, if you look at them, they've thrown the ball for 991 yards, and they have given up almost 1,500 yards in the air. The Browns have. They have thrown 10 touchdowns with 4 interceptions there, but their opponents have thrown 12 touchdowns, but have also thrown 6 interceptions. So they are getting to the ball with some good interception numbers. But I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought they had a little bit more. Honestly, I haven't watched them. Not in full. I've watched parts. I watched some of that first week game against the Ravens.
I watched the Dallas game, but that was not, I couldn't even begin to talk about their passing game because they were just too busy running over the Dallas Cowboys like they were wet toilet paper or something.
Yeah.
It was
and part of the reason, you've got all those passing yards is, my goodness, how many passing yards did the I'd have to look at it here. How many passing yards did the Cowboys have against them? 481, almost 500 yards passed against them. Actually, and that's the only game where it's gone over 300. Where they've given up more than 300 yards through the air. This is a very intriguing matchup. Do you think this is the Steelers' best opponent? Forget records. Do you think this is the Steelers' most formidable opponent of the season?
So far, yes.
Yeah, I still think Houston isn't bad.
Houston's still up there, but right now I would probably rank Cleveland slightly ahead of Houston.
Mainly because I think Houston can get things going now with a different head coach. We've heard now about the blow up that happened before the Steelers game. The players revolted, and if you're going to revolt and get a coach fired, you better show up and win your next game, which they did this past week. So, but this is their most formative. Now, just so you're not confused. We're not saying all season. We're saying so far this season.
So far this season.
So it'll be a very interesting matchup. Now, something about the title of the show that I wanted to come back to and talk about was, we were saying about how the Steelers were basically looking at a team and trying to take away their strength.
Yep.
That's not something that's obvious to do this week. But what's also nice is that every week, that's not really something that other teams can do against the Steelers.
Correct.
I mean, you could say take away Ben Roethlisberger, but I mean, come on. Anytime you can take away a team's quarterback, that's something you're going to want to do. So, but now you're saying, okay, well, you take out the run game. You know what we're going to do? We're going to just pass the ball, nice short passes. Oh, you're going to take out Juju Smith-Schuster. We're going to throw 3 touchdowns and rush one with Chase Claypool. Oh, you're going to focus on Claypool. Well, guess what? We still got other guys. And you want to take away the rushing attack with the running backs. We'll hit you on some sweeps and, jet sweeps and end arounds and stuff, and even get the receivers and stuff involved with Claypool and Ray. I really like that with the Steelers offense. It's really growing on me more and more. I feel like there's more creativity. And Rich, I'm so glad I was at your house to see that play. How fantastic was the touchdown to Chase Claypool, where the Eagles were trying to say it was an illegal formation, which it was not. They had 22 personnel. That meant they had 2 running backs and 2 tight ends and 1 wide receiver.
And 1 receiver.
Down, it was inside the 5. I can't remember what the exact yard line that was. But you come in with 22 personnel. I couldn't tape the game because I didn't have it in my area. Part of the reason I was at your house. So I couldn't go back and break this down. I've got to get someone else to send me a clip of it to see exactly what defense the Eagles countered with. But I mean, down the goal line, you come out with 22, you've got to do a run heavy defense. So it was James Conner and Trey Edmonds, who would have been, who you would believe would have lined up at fullback. And you had McDonald and Ebron and Chase Claypool, who's basically like another tight end, as your wide receiver. And they go and they split them all out wide. Yep. They run the diamond to the left and the single receiver to the right. And I loved where they put everybody. They put Ebron out there by himself to just say, hey, if there's just going to be one-on-one coverage, we'll go throw it up to you. We just go throw it up to you.
You heard Ben say, oh, hey, we
run it a bunch in practice.
A lot, but I've always thrown it to Ebron.
Yeah, he's always thrown to Ebron because why not? If he's got a one-on-one matchup out there, because if you put somebody else out there over the top, then obviously, what are you going to do with the other 4? And you're going to be dealing with linebackers and stuff like that.
As soon as the Eagles shaded that they were going to put somebody over the top on Ebron, it made an easy decision to him to get it and throw it out quick to Claypool, and it was an easy touchdown.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, when you had Vance McDonald, James Conner, and Trey Edmonds out there to block for it, my goodness, it was a thing of beauty. You had a linebacker out there throwing his hand up trying to say there's a flag. They didn't report anybody as eligible. It wasn't a jumbo package like that. It was 2 tight ends and 2 running backs. And they only had 1 guy on the line of scrimmage.
I'm pretty
sure it was Vance McDonald. There was Vance
Two
McDonald, and then the two backs there. I mean, it was a diamond. It was beautiful.
Correct.
And that's stuff I've talked about of bring in a large, and that's why I say Claypool can bring. I'd have been fine if it was James Washington in that case too, because he's a guy that's just going to run people over. Right. And just take advantage of that. I've loved seeing that from the offense. It seems like there's not really a whole lot that the teams, you know, you want to try to take one thing away from the Steelers. Yeah. I'd said it to Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman that one injury by a wide receiver for the Steelers, and I think they're okay. Two, I think they're in trouble. Man, they still seem to be doing all right. I mean, they could even get by. Well, you know, I don't want to say it, but I'm not even as concerned about that. They've just got some great depth, you know, and when I was including the tight ends with that, they just got some great depth, weapons, and things of that sort. It's good stuff. Anything you want to say about that?
For guys who can catch the football.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I got to scroll back on you because this was put up right at the very end of show one.
Oh yeah, we had did we have a super chat? Did you find it?
Yeah, there it was.
Sorry about that, Sean. I meant to do that right when we came into part 2, and then I forgot about it.
That's all right. And then I was letting you roll, and I just been sitting there at it waiting for you. And I was like, you know what? We get to the point where I can get him to let me bring that up. I want to make sure I bring it up.
So here we go. Sean Manahan, $2 into the tip jar using the super chat feature. Thank you very much. He said, "Is this the year we get number 7?" I tell you what, it's anytime you feel like it's your year. It's, you know, like 2017, it felt like there was so much good going on there and things just kind of fell apart. This year, I like the cohesiveness of this team. I like the way it seems that the locker room is working and everything else. And my goodness, the Tennessee Titans have put up over 40 points now on the Bills. Crazy. But now,
by the way,
back to this.
You're sitting there talking about that. Don't read too much into that when basically your two starting cover corners for the Bills are out. So, you know.
Yes. So
is this year we get 7? Look.
Yeah.
This is the year 7 is a possibility. At this point last year, 7 was not a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if we squeak into the playoffs like
it was one of those.
There was no way anybody had number 7 on their mind.
You were thinking, let's see what the best they can do.
The only 7 we were thinking about was, can we get 7 back in our starting lineup next year at quarterback?
Yeah.
Not number 7 Lombardi. This year, it's a part of the discussion right now. Now, we've finished a quarter of the season. Ask me the same question when we finished half the season. Then when we finished 3/4 of the season, and when we finished the season. Yep. Okay? Because as quickly as we got to this is, you know, that we're sitting at 4-0 right now, we could get through the next quarter of our season and we could be sitting at 4-4. And I could only imagine what the live chat would look like then, who we would be saying we needed to fire, which guys we said we need to get rid of, anything like that, if suddenly we were to lose the next 4 games. So I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse.
Yes.
Okay. Sean, keep bringing it up. We're going to talk about every week how we're doing as a team and whether or not we think we've got a shot at 7. Mm-hmm. Right now, there is a shot at 7.
All right. I'm going to put it this way. NFL coaches love to put the season into quarters. You know, you're looking at quarter seasons. If I were to tell you that the Steelers were going to go 4-0 in one of the quarters, 2-2 in 2 of them, and 3-1 in the other, go 11-5, make the playoffs, everything's good. Which quarter would you take the 4-0? I'm taking the last. I'm taking the last one.
I went the last
because
I want to be riding the bow into the playoffs. If we go 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, 2-2. I'm not feeling as great going into the playoffs.
I've looked ahead. I've peeked ahead, trying to figure out, you know, how's the end of the season going to look for the Steelers as well? It's really good and really important to get to where you're starting off well when you're already in position to make the postseason. You're set up pretty well there. But I also want to take you back to the year of 2016. In the year 2016, there were 2 NFL teams that started 4-0. Those 2 NFL teams were the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings. Neither one of them made the playoffs.
Right.
They finished 9-7 for the Broncos and 8-8 for the Vikings. So the 4-0 start is great and wonderful, and it sets up well. But that a 4-0 start does not a championship make. What it does is it gives you a better chance to contend for it.
Yep.
So that's how you got to look at it. The Steelers are putting themselves in a position to contend for it. And as Coach Tom says, we got to keep getting better.
As long as we can keep having the conversation every week saying that we are still in contention, there's not a whole lot more you can ask for.
Yeah.
When the conversation goes from we could still be in contention to 7, if the conversation has to switch to, oh my gosh, I hope we can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's not what we want.
Exactly. So it's great to be on this roll. I mean, think about it. If you really want to think about this, you ready for me to blow your mind? This Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers will finally complete their 2020 preseason schedule.
Yeah.
They were supposed to play 5 games in the preseason.
They
haven't even played 5 games yet.
Yeah.
You got to kind of, so are they a work in progress? Absolutely. But they're a 4-0 work in progress, which is what I like. And I really like, there was a lot about this offense that you could really, really fall in love with this past week. There was also parts with the defense that could really make you a little bit nervous moving forward, but it changes from week to week. Let's just see what happens when they take the field. This is what we're going to do. I would really like to. Now, that was not me predicting any kind of schedule breakdown or whatnot. I was just giving you a scenario where these were the 4 quarters a team was dealing with, and how you'd want it to fall down. I would love to see the Steelers on a roll rolling into the postseason. More than that role to get started.
That's how
but what's ultimately better is to do both.
That's how we made our Super Bowl run back in 2005.
Exactly.
Went on that streak just to get in as the 6th seed and then just continued the roll all the way through.
Yep. I mean, I can't remember what the math was, but when there was 4 games left in that season, 3 games left that season, the Steelers were basically mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Almost. And they just kept holding on.
They could have gone 3-1 and gotten a lot of help.
Yes. So they weren't basically, there was a much lower percentage of them making the playoffs. They were not who you were expecting.
Right.
So, but what we're going to do now is, rather than open up, sometimes we try to get to questions and everything. We don't quite have the questions. What I really want to get into that I didn't feel like we got to do enough of last week was to get your score prediction and then share other people's score prediction coming up. And now when people give a score in the live chat, I generally, unless you say it's the other team, I'm going to assume, which team you're saying that the Steelers are going to win, but I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that if that's the way you type it, that's what I'm going to assume. So if that's not what you mean, you got to change it. So Rich, I'm not even looking at the live chat. I might not even bring up any if they've already done it. What is your prediction for the Steelers?
You haven't put it in the live chat yet, so they're not.
I don't usually tell them that. I don't usually put that in there.
So prediction: 27-24 Steelers.
27-24 Steelers. All right. So, hey, guess what? This is what we have coming up. Somebody said so. Well, I want to bring this up. Young boy said the next two games matter the most. No, you know which game really matters the most? I say that it's better to roll in there. The one that really matters the most is the next one. It's the next one, the next game. And you know what? The next week, the next one is the answer. And the following week, the next one is the answer. That's all. That should always be the answer. But Nathaniel Zarate says 31-23 Steelers. Cree has 29-26. That would not be a cover because the Steelers right now are favored by 3.5. The last I checked,
mine is not a cover.
Yep.
My prediction was not a cover.
Yes. And the Steelers have covered 3 out of 4 games this year. The only one they didn't was Denver, which I predicted them not to cover. So just because, guess what? Now since 1970, the team that the Steelers have the worst record against is the Denver Broncos. Because by being the Philadelphia Eagles, they are no longer the team that they have the worst winning percentage against. So, and that includes the playoffs. So let's see what else we got. Brad says 28-24 us. Then he thinks that they might drop the one in Cleveland. So I'm just looking for more of them. Wave Dave, 24-20 Steelers. These are some interesting ones. Okay. Ezra says Steelers 20, Browns 16. Sean Manahan, Steelers 37, Browns 24. Ronan says 31-17 Steelers. So, and Kathy says, I sound like Tomlin. I think, was that to the next one's the most important?
I don't know, but
whichever one, I'm not surprised.
You watch too many Tomlin press conferences.
I have to watch them all and listen to them again and then read them. All right. Mark Tobin says 28-14 Steelers. Okay. 27-14 Steelers by double HH. Is that Mostos? 36-17 Steelers. Okay. Noman says Steelers 35, Browns 28. Then here you go. Keith, 11-7. So that's interesting. I think I just lost. It skipped on me. Felicia, she's going with the shootout. 42-35 Steelers. I think I wouldn't. I'm not ruling that out. You know what I'm saying? That is not something that I would say would be.
Yeah, but the more I thought about it, I wasn't ruling out that 20-17 game either.
Yeah. How about 35-20 Steelers?
Where you've got decent offenses, but you got defenses that can slug it out too.
Yep. 24-37 Steelers. Let's see. Then Faceless Man, 42-17, who also predicts a defensive touchdown. That'd be nice. Have not had one of those yet. Hey.
That was Wes.
Hold on.
What?
Nathaniel says Dick Shiner MVP of the game. I was going to save this till Thursday, but I might as well bring it out there because he brought it up. Is that I said, about how Chase Claypool was the first Steelers player to have 4 touchdowns. These aren't passing touchdowns, don't count. 4 touchdowns in a game since I think it was Ray Johnson Johnston, I think is correct, in 1960. I can't remember it now, but 3 of those 4 touchdown passes were thrown by Dick Shiner. So just thought I'd put that out there. Wes, 41-17 Steelers. 41-17 Steelers. I missed Dilwood it because I'm used to him getting it right. So that would be nice. If anybody got last week's score correct, make sure you screenshot your score so you can prove it to us because we don't remember all these. We have a 35-20 Steelers from DNT Play. I'm going to stop there. Okay. Explore Your World, 40-17 Steelers. So these are some interesting scores here that I think are pretty good. I'm not going to give mine yet. I will tell you this. I didn't get a score, but I did get a prediction from one Lance Williams that he is predicting a Cleveland Browns victory. So for those of you out there, just thought you would know.
Haters gotta hate.
Haters gotta hate. And hey, here's Ken from New Jersey. 27-19 Steelers. And then Wes, of course, has to say thank you, Lance, because as we all know, when Lance picks the Steelers to lose, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So with that, anything else you want to say here to bring us to a close here tonight, Rich?
No, just happy we're back to Steeler football. Hated that impromptu bye week. Nice that that's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I like to watch Steelers football on Sunday.
Yeah, same here. It's you kind of know that you're back into the routine, that you're just hoping that everything keeps going clear. I'm really glad that they only had to move 2 games for the Steelers when their bye got bumped, because my goodness, was it 8 or 9 that they ended up moving? It was a lot.
All I know is this, though, people. I wish some of our folks out there in the live chat, and also ones that are, I want to say, out there listening in podcast form. Oh, if they could have been a fly on the wall to sit and listen to you, me, and Kyle sitting there watching that.
Hey, they kind of were if they read the knee-jerk reaction. You have to admit, that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I hope that you all were getting to enjoy the Steeler games. I know it's funny. I don't know that I'm going to get this week's either because of that ugly purple team. But I know a lot. It is pretty much the national game, unless you're in one specific region where a team from that region is playing at 1:00 on CBS. It's going to be a lot of people getting to see the Steelers this week. So we'll be back next week.
If you don't get it, just remember your Kyle rule that I told you is in place.
My Kyle rule.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Kyle's not allowed to go to the stadium to see games now. Everybody says
that I'm not allowed to go to Brian Anthony Davis's house.
Correct. You can go to Jeff's.
Yeah,
go to Jeff's, but don't go to Brian's.
Yeah. So Nathaniel wants to know about Maryland having coverage. I'm like, that's where I am, and it looks like I'm not. But we'll have to see.
But just so you know, Nathaniel, I am in Maryland, and I will get the Steelers.
That's because you're in the right part of Maryland. You're in the Pittsburgh sphere of influence. But want to thank you all. Great live chat tonight. I'm glad you all had such a wonderful discussion. A lot of talk about
talk on the Le'Veon Bell stuff. Yep. I'm glad you all were talking about it there. We wanted to cover it and get out of it because we needed to talk more Steelers.
Yeah, focus on.
But glad you all stayed on it in the live chat. I enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, so make sure you're, hit that like button. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this in podcast form, make sure, go in and give us that 5-star rating. We would really appreciate that. And as much as anything, make sure you are checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We have all kinds of stuff there. We have a great 7 to 11 always open t-shirt available on there. You can go on and click and purchase that. Through a certain company that has designed that's up on the main page. We've got film breakdowns, commentary, all kinds of stuff. Tuesday is over, so we are basically rolling into week 6 now. Big game this week. Really looking forward to it. Make sure you're also tuning into all the other podcasts, not just the audio podcasts like the Let's Ride on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll have a Stat Geek Thursday. Michael's live mic was this morning. Don't forget our blokes from Australia. Their Touchdown Under on Saturday. Then you've got your typical YouTube shows that run from Saturday through Thursday. I will be back on Thursday with the Steelers preview with Brian Anthony Davis and Jeff Hartman. And Rich, you'll be back with me next week, right? Hopefully talking about another Steelers victory. So with that, we're going to sign off and we will see you next week.
Can't wait.